India produces 15 lakh engineers annually, yet companies consistently report they cannot find qualified talent. According to the Aspiring Minds National Employability Report, only 7% of Indian engineers are employable in core technical roles. What explains this paradox? The answer lies not in individual failure, but in how an entire system evolved, one that prioritized credentials over competence and scale over substance. In this episode, we'll examine the evidence, explore the causes, and discuss what this means for students, graduates, and parents making education decisions today. For decades, the relationship between education and employment followed a predictable pattern. A degree opened doors. That assumption shaped family decisions, policy choices, and individual aspirations. But the evidence suggests this relationship has changed in ways worth understanding. Consider the scale. India now has over 4 crore students enrolled in higher education, according to the All India Survey on Higher Education. We've built more than 1,000 universities and 42,000 colleges. We've democratized the credential. But have we democratized competence? Here's how we'll approach this question. First, we'll look at the data, what the employment numbers actually reveal. Then, we'll examine the structural factors that created this situation. We'll explore what's working elsewhere. And finally, we'll discuss practical implications for different stakeholders. This is a complex topic. We'll build the argument layer by layer, starting with the patterns in the data. The unemployment data shows something counterintuitive. In India, the relationship between education and unemployment isn't what most people assume. According to the Periodic Labor Force Survey 2023 to 24, if you have minimal education, your measured unemployment rate is close to zero. Not because jobs are abundant, but because you cannot afford to be unemployed. You take whatever work exists: farming, daily wage labor, survival. But if you're a graduate or a postgraduate, your unemployment rate rises to 15 to 20% in some demographics. Among youth aged 20 to 24, CMIE data suggests it can exceed 40%. Economists have a term for this phenomenon: waithood, a prolonged period where educated youth are neither in employment, nor in further education, nor in training. They're waiting, living off family support, preparing for government exams, hoping something will change. Now let's examine who is actually hireable. According to the India Skills Report 2024 and various employability assessments, the numbers break down like this. For engineering graduates overall, about 50 to 57% are considered immediately employable. But for core technical roles, actually writing code that compiles, designing circuits that work, we're looking at 7 to 25%. Half of all engineers cannot do the job they trained for. This isn't speculation. This is Aspiring Minds, now SHL, conducting standardized assessments across lakhs of engineering graduates. Salaries tell another story. According to industry analysis from Careers 360, the entry-level salary for mass-hired engineers at major IT services companies remained anchored between 3.25 lakhs rupees and 3.6 lakhs rupees per annum for nearly 15 years, from 2007 to 2022. In nominal terms, it barely moved. In real terms, accounting for inflation, the value of an entry-level engineering job has approximately halved. Meanwhile, the cost of that engineering degree increased significantly, sometimes doubling or tripling in private colleges. Here's a case I've seen repeatedly in forums like r/Developers India. Consider a graduate from a Tier 3 engineering college in a non metro city, the kind of college where placement drives are largely performative. Campus placements, essentially zero. But this graduate recognized something early. The curriculum was obsolete. It was teaching technologies from 2015 in 2023. So they turned to Leet Code, open source contributions on GitHub, cold emails to startups, dozens of rejections, many explicitly citing the college tag. But their portfolio spoke louder than their credential. A working project, real code, proof they could do the job. Outcome? A remote internship at a startup, converted to full time. Salary, approximately 16 per annum, twice what their classmates hoped for. This story is real, but this person is an outlier. They had strong self discipline, English fluency, reliable internet, and a family that could support months of unpaid learning. We'll return to what makes these exceptions possible and whether this path is accessible to everyone. India isn't alone in this. Consider South Korea, one of the most educated populations on earth. University enrollment rates exceeding 70%, a culture that prioritizes credentials. And yet, according to KEDI data, youth unemployment hovers around 19%. Students spend years accumulating specs, certifications, internships, test scores in a hyper-competitive race for a shrinking pool of prestigious jobs. More education did not mean more opportunity. It meant credential inflation. The same cycle is forming in India. The question is, what created it? There are two competing theories about what a degree actually does. Understanding the difference is crucial. Theory 1, human capital. This is what most families believe. An economist named Gary Becker proposed that education makes you more productive. You learn skills, you become more valuable. Companies pay you more because you can do more. This is the hopeful story. Theory 2, signaling. Here's the alternative. Michael Spence, a Nobel Prize winner, proposed something different. What if education doesn't primarily make you more productive? What if it's mainly a filter? The degree doesn't prove you learned anything specific. It proves you had the persistence, the conformity, and the basic cognitive ability to survive a 4-year bureaucratic obstacle course. Employers use it because hiring is risky. Evaluating a candidate is expensive. But a degree? That's a cheap screen. If you have one, you've demonstrated you can wake up on time, submit assignments, and navigate institutional requirements. That's the signal. There's evidence that signaling plays a significant role. Researchers have documented something called the sheepskin effect. Imagine two people with identical years of education. One completed their degree. One dropped out in the final year. Logic suggests the difference should be minimal, maybe 5 to 10%. After all, they learned almost the same content. But the data shows the degree holder earns 20 to 30% more than the dropout. That jump isn't for learning, it's for the certificate, the sheepskin. So, which theory applies to India? The honest answer? It depends on where you studied. For elite institutes, the top research universities, premier engineering institutes, both theories likely apply. The degree is a powerful signal, and you probably learned real skills through rigorous curricula, industry exposure, and peer networks. For the vast majority, affiliated colleges, Tier 2 and Tier 3 institutions, private colleges focused on capacity over quality, signaling dominates. The learning is often optional. The curriculum may be outdated, but you still need the stamp to enter the queue. This is the trap. You pay 8 to 15 lakh rupees for a signal, that has lost its power. Because when everyone has a degree, it stops being a distinguishing mark. It becomes the baseline, the new high school diploma. Consider another case, a composite of many graduates from premier institutions. A student from a top engineering program. Decent grades, nothing spectacular. No startup idea. But here's what they had, the brand. Campus placement brought day one companies with 20 plus LPA packages. Alumni networks provided referrals. The college tag opened doors consistently. Their signal worked perfectly. The institution acted as a trusted filter for employers. They didn't need deep evaluation. The brand did the filtering. Now contrast this with our Tier 3 graduate from earlier. Same country, same economy, same year. One was selected by default. One had to fight for years. The difference wasn't intelligence. It was access to the right signal. Let's examine what a different system looks like. Germany's dual education model is well documented. According to German Federal Ministry of Education reports, students combine academic learning with real on-the-job training. Approximately 70% of their time is spent in a company, working on actual projects. 30% is in vocational school. The result? Youth unemployment around 6%. Compare that to India's 40%. But here's the key distinction. In Germany, a skilled tradesperson commands social respect and competitive wages. Vocational paths aren't seen as failure, they're valued. In India, we've created a status hierarchy where only certain types of work count, where engineer sounds better than technician, even if the technician earns more and has job security. The German model works because employers are co-creators of the curriculum. They help design what students learn. They often guarantee jobs upon completion. In India, industry complains about unemployable graduates while doing relatively little to fix the pipeline. Now, the strongest argument against this thesis is what I call the CEO defense. You look at the leaders of global tech, Sundar Pichai, Satya Nadella, Shantanu Narayan. They are products of the Indian education system. If it worked for them, and for the thousands of Indian engineers successfully working in Silicon Valley, surely the system produces competence. This is classic survivorship bias. These leaders studied in the 1980s and 90s, often at the peak of the quality over quantity era, and primarily at elite institutions. They are the 0.01%. Using them to defend the current mass education system is like judging success of a lottery by looking only at the jackpot winners. The data we discussed earlier, the 7% employability rate, is the average. And in systems analysis, the average tells you the health of the structure. The outliers only tell you about individual brilliance. Let's trace how we arrived here. In the 1950s, India's approach to higher education followed a specific philosophy. The country needed scientific and technical elites to modernize the economy, to build infrastructure, steel plants, the foundations of industry. So the government created what some called the temples of modern India, the IITs, AIIMS, central universities. The philosophy was quality over quantity, exclusive, rigorous, selective. A degree from these institutions was a powerful signal, guaranteed entry into the elite bureaucracy or public sector. Massive scarcity meant massive value. But there was a trade-off. Access was extremely limited. The gross enrollment ratio in 1980 was just 5%. Only a small fraction of the population could participate. Then came 1991, economic liberalization. The license Raj ended. The service sector expanded rapidly. Suddenly, India needed lakhs of English speaking graduates to staff IT companies, call centers, back offices. The state couldn't build campuses fast enough. So it did what governments often do when capacity is limited: it outsourced. The 1990s and 2000s saw significant growth in private engineering and management colleges. AICTE granted approvals at an accelerated pace. As long as you had land and buildings, you could establish a college. GER went from 5% to 28%. Access was democratized. That's the positive story. The challenge? We democratize capacity, not necessarily capability. For a period, the market masked the underlying issues. The IT services giants became major absorption engines. They hired tens of thousands of freshers annually, not for specific technical skills, but for raw cognitive ability and trainability. It didn't matter if your college was mediocre. It didn't matter if your curriculum was from 1995. The company would train you. Engineering became the default aspiration, regardless of aptitude, regardless of interest. 15 lakh engineers graduate every year in a market that absorbs perhaps 2 lakh in relevant roles. The rest? Underemployed in various fields, waiting for government jobs. Then came the global financial crisis. Global hiring slowed. The IT model shifted from labor arbitrage to value addition and automation. The demand for generic, low-skill graduates softened. But the supply side, thousands of private colleges, couldn't pivot. They had debt. They had infrastructure. They had syllabi from 2005. They kept producing graduates for a market that had moved on. By the mid-2000s, industry reports consistently flagged that over 80% of Indian engineers were unemployable in core roles. The structural issues are: 1. Curriculum obsolescence. In technology, skills become outdated in 2 to 5 years. But university syllabi are updated every 4 to 5 years, in good cases. By the time you graduate, what you learned in second year may be legacy technology. 2. Faculty constraints. According to NIRF data, top 100 institutions have approximately 80% of faculty with PhDs. Everyone else, around 35%. Many colleges operate with significant faculty vacancies, particularly in reserved positions according to UGC 2023 data. 3. The affiliation model. India's unique affiliation system chains hundreds of colleges to a single university's curriculum. An autonomous college can update its syllabus in months. An affiliated college must wait for the university board to convene, debate, and approve, a process that takes years. 4. Input-based regulation. Regulatory bodies have historically focused on inputs: land area, building size, library books, rather than outcomes: placement rates, learning gains, alumni success. You could build a campus that passed every inspection and produced few employable graduates. Here's a common scenario, a composite of many families. A family takes an education loan of 15 lakhs rupees. They sold some assets, used savings, all for a private engineering degree with glossy brochures and promises of high placement rates. The companies that visited campus? Mostly BPOs and sales firms, offering 12 to 15,000 rupees per month. The graduate refused. That's beneath their degree, their family's sacrifice. 2 years later, still unemployed, living at home, preparing for government exams. The loan interest is compounding. The degree hasn't just failed to provide a return, it has actively complicated workforce entry, because taking a low-status job feels like betraying the family's investment. This is the sunk cost dynamic in practice. You've likely seen the advertisements. Learn to code in 6 months, 12 LPA average package, income share agreement, only pay when you get a job. Platforms like Scalar, Masai School, Newton School have emerged as finishing schools for graduates who have degrees but lack market ready skills. According to their published reports, placement rates 90 to 94%, average salaries 6 to 7 per annum, top performers 12 to 15 per annum. These numbers are significant. The data doesn't tell the full story. Selection bias. These programs have rigorous admission filters. They're selecting for people who already have high potential, aptitude, prior exposure, motivation. They're not transforming anyone into a developer. They're identifying people who might have succeeded anyway and providing a structured path. The variables. Consumer feedback varies. There are reports of aggressive loan marketing, refund policies with narrow windows, pressure to accept offers quickly to meet placement metrics. The cost 2 to 3 lakhs rupees upfront, or an income share agreement that takes 15 to 17% of salary for years. This isn't free, it's a calculated trade off. That said, for the right person, these paths can be valuable. If you already have a degree, even from a tier 3 college, have basic coding exposure and aptitude, are willing to commit 8 to 12 hours daily for 6 to 12 months, have a financial safety net, or can commit to the ISA, then bootcamps offer a compressed, industry-aligned path that many traditional colleges cannot provide. But they don't address the scale of the problem. They're not for everyone. The internet has democratized knowledge access like never before. Free Code Camp, YouTube, Coursera, NPTEL, much of it free or nearly free. Success stories exist. Developers from smaller cities landing remote positions with global companies. Content creators building audiences without media degrees. Designers with portfolio-driven careers. Proof of work often trumps credentials. But who actually succeeds through alternative paths? The self-taught developer who lands a remote position typically has English fluency, the internet's operating language, reliable internet and hardware, not universal in tier 3 or rural India, time, months of learning without immediate financial pressure, risk tolerance, family that can absorb uncertainty, prior exposure, someone who introduced them to the path. If you're a first-generation college student from a rural background with family debt, no computer at home, and immediate pressure to start earning, just learn to code on YouTube isn't practical advice. It's a fantasy. The opt-out privilege is real. Alternative paths are more accessible to those who already have certain advantages. They're not universal solutions. That said, there's evidence of gradual change. According to World Economic Forum reporting, approximately 30% of Indian employers have expressed intent to drop degree requirements for tech roles, significantly higher than the global average of 19%. Companies like Google and IBM have publicly moved towards skills-based hiring. They're testing for competence rather than filtering by credential. Reality check. A Harvard Business School study found that actual hiring of non-degree holders increased only marginally in practice. Cultural shifts take time, but the direction is notable. The paper ceiling is developing cracks. Use this framework based on where you are right now. This isn't theory. This is based on patterns in the data and observed outcomes. Profile 1. Current student, years 1 to 2. Your reality. You're already enrolled. The investment has begun. Whether your college is excellent or mediocre, you're there. Mindset shift. Assume your curriculum is insufficient. Not because your professors are inadequate, but because the system updates slower than the market. Your approach. 1. Portfolio first. Start building proof of work now. Developers. GitHub projects. Real applications, not tutorial clones. Designers. Portfolio with actual case studies. Business students. Case competitions, freelance projects, content. 2. Network outside campus. LinkedIn is accessible. Connect with alumni who've navigated successfully. Learn from their paths. 3. Internships over GPA. A real internship, even unpaid, often teaches more than coursework. Start seeking opportunities in year 2. 4. Learn one in demand skill deeply. Pick a growing field. Invest consistently. Certifications can supplement, not replace, demonstrated competence. Profile 2. Final year student. Your reality. Placements may be limited. Companies may not be visiting. Or they're offering salaries that don't match your investment. Mindset shift. The placement cell is not your only channel. Many good positions aren't filled on campus. Your approach. Skill building sprint. You have 6 to 8 months. Use them intentionally. Identify the specific role you're targeting. Learn the skills that role requires, not what your syllabus says. Build 2 to 3 demonstrable projects. Off campus applications. Startups and SMEs don't visit placement drives. Apply directly via LinkedIn, job platforms, direct outreach. Consider structured programs. If your college brand is weak and you need structured guidance, bootcamps can bridge the gap. But evaluate the terms carefully. Lower initial expectations strategically. Your first job doesn't define your career, it defines your entry point. Consider taking a learning focused role over holding out for a package that matches your investment. Profile 3. Recent graduate. Unemployed or underemployed. Your reality. You graduated months or years ago. You're in what economists call waithood, preparing for exams, not working, or in a role that doesn't use your degree. Mindset shift. Release the sunk cost thinking. Your degree cost what it cost. That investment is past. The question now isn't, how do I make this degree pay off? It's, what do I do next to build value? Your approach. Start working. A job that builds transferable skills is often better than extended unemployment. Entry-level work in marketing, sales, or operations teaches practical capabilities. Upskill while working. Work during the day, learn in the evening. Use income to fund structured learning. Skill investment. If your college brand won't help, your skills might. Invest in building demonstrable competence. Assess government exam strategy realistically. UPSC or SSC preparation is valid if you've assessed the probability honestly. The competition is substantial. Have a parallel plan. Profile 4. Parents making decisions. Your reality. You're considering investing 10 to 20 lakhs rupees in a child's education. You've been told it's the path to success. Mindset shift. Apply ROI-based analysis, not prestige-based assumptions. Your approach. Ask for placement data. Look at the median salary, not the highest. Look at what percentage remained unemployed after 6 months. Calculate total cost. Tuition plus hostel plus coaching plus opportunity cost. Potential earnings during those years. That's the real price. Question field selection. Does your child want to be an engineer? Or is this societal default? A commerce degree with strong skills might outperform a disinterested BTech. Consider alternative paths. ITs, diplomas, and skill-based certifications can offer faster workforce entry with lower investment. They're not lesser. They're different paths to different outcomes. Graduates who find success share one trait, regardless of college tier, family resources, or initial circumstances: agency. The graduates who find their way, they take ownership of their learning and career. They don't wait for the placement cell. They don't primarily blame the system, even when the system deserves scrutiny. They identify what the market values and they work to build it. The system has genuine problems, but your response to it remains within your control. We began by asking, why do companies report talent shortages while lakhs of graduates remain unemployed? The evidence suggests a structural mismatch. We built a credentialing system that prioritized scale over substance. The degree became a signal that lost its power as everyone acquired it. The gap between what institutions teach and what markets need widened over decades. This doesn't mean all degrees are worthless. For some paths, medicine, law, regulated professions, credentials remain essential. For premier institutions, both skill building and signaling often work together. But for the majority, the credential alone is no longer sufficient. It may never have been sufficient. We just noticed more as the system scaled. This isn't just about education policy. It's about how societies adapt when the assumptions that guided one generation no longer apply to the next. The mental model, degree equals security, worked for a specific economic era. That era has shifted. The question now is how quickly individuals, families, and institutions can update their models. This pattern isn't unique to India. Every society navigating rapid economic change faces some version of this adjustment. But understanding the mechanism helps clarify the path forward. If there's one idea worth retaining from this analysis, the credential opens the door. What you build keeps you in the room. The market rewards demonstrated competence, proof of work, the ability to create value. The degree may still be necessary for entry, but it's not sufficient for success. The structural challenges are real, but the data also shows pathways that work. Graduates who build portfolios, who network beyond their campus, who invest in market-relevant skills, who approach their career with agency rather than waiting for the system to provide. The rules are evolving. Are you? If you found this analysis useful, consider subscribing. We're building a series that examines India's systems with depth and honesty. Not to complain, but to understand. And I'd like to hear from you. What's your experience been? Did your degree investment work out as expected? Or are you navigating this landscape right now? Your perspective might help someone else. Next episode on Build India series, we will see India's government job obsession, the cultural, economic, and psychological drivers behind why millions spend their prime earning years preparing for competitive exams with lottery-level odds. Subscribe to get updates.